Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Welcome, Somali Rochester Media. Today we have a special guest, the candidate of mayor of Rochester, Minnesota, and the leader of community. Welcome, Dr. Wale. Welcome, sir.
No, thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum, and just want to greet our Somali community in Rochester. The Somali community is a special community. They work hard. Amazing culture, amazing food, amazing people, amazing children, and so really appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Great. Now you are running, the mayor of Rochester, Minnesota. Can you please tell people or audience introduction of yourself or something about your education and the long journey that you have been as a candidate of here?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity. So, in terms of like my journey, I think, we should probably talk about first, like just looking at Rochester. Rochester is a really special place. And, I believe that, our best days are yet to come. And the way we do it is we do it together. We have people from different cultures in Rochester. We have people from different faiths. Our Somali community are an important part of the fabric of Rochester. And, our city is getting increasingly more diverse. People from different cultures are coming. And people, they're hardworking, nice people here. But we also have challenges. And, as I talk to people talk about, some of their hopes and dreams, and looking for leadership that listens, a leader that brings people together to make sure that Rochester works for everybody. So in terms of like my journey, really that's really what this is about. It's about the people, how do we better serve people? Career-wise, I've had over 20 plus years of leadership experience in different industries, from IT to manufacturing to retail, and healthcare, where I'm a healthcare director of strategy. And then obviously I also lead the NAACP in Rochester. I'm the president of the Rochester branch, and that's part of the oldest civil rights organization. So when you think of Dr. Martin Luther King, when you think of Ida B. Wells or Rosa Parks, those are folks, W.E. Du Bois. Those are people that were part of the NAACP, and so my collective experience, all of that has really prepared me for this. And again, my goal is really about service. How do we better serve our community?
Great. You're president of NAACP.
Yes.
I think beyond the leadership of this big organization, especially for side of education and professional, and also the community experience that you have, have you prepared to serve as a mayor?
Yeah. So, at least the way I look at it is, at least with my journey, my life's journey has prepared me for this. So I've talked about, my experience, I've also led $100 million projects. So working with large teams of people. I have a doctorate in ethical leadership, and leadership is important. We need leaders that are ethical. We need leaders that bring people together. So those experiences are really key. But beyond all of the professional experience, at the core, what is Dr. Wale Elegbede about? It's really about serving people, bringing our community together. I want to make sure that Rochester works for everyone. And we're, all cultures are important, and our Somali community are definitely important too. And my experience has shown that.
I think mostly people are, asking some question when you hear that someone, is a candidate of some high level of position. What makes you stand for as a mayor to Rochester? What's the reason?
Well, I think it's so the way I look at it is, so what is leadership about? First of all, for me, leadership should be about service. Where you want to serve. And It's not a, we have the concept of like a public servant is not a public master. It's a public servant, right?
Yeah.
And so you're doing that for the benefit of the community. But one person does not do it alone. It's going to take the whole community to be part of this. So, the leadership that I'm looking to bring is leadership that we bring the community along. We inform community about the decisions we're making. There have been a lot of decisions, some decisions that have been made where the community have not bought into a lot of ideas. You look at the sports complex, that is one, so again, the more we can make sure that we're doing this with people, not to people, don't tell me this is good for me, engage me in that process. And so that's what we need to do. And so that's what I'm trying to bring leadership that listens.
Great. And what would you be the main priority that you as a mayor?
That's an excellent question. So I have lots of priorities, and the way I came about my priorities there were things that obviously did I observe and notice, affordable housing, cost of living. But I also talked to people, that was part of my process to understand what are the challenges, because you may think but when you start to talk to somebody, this person will tell you, hey, you know what? Daycare is important to me. You talk to somebody else, there's something else that's important to them. But from a broad perspective, the affordable housing and cost of living, that's a big priority. Another priority is, making sure that Rochester is a welcoming community. So we've had, again, there are good people here, but we've also had a lot of incidences. We had a bridge incident where, there was a writing on the N-word on the bridge. We had the incident with the Somali wonderful boy that was basically being traumatized. So people want to feel welcome, and if you're a doctor or a patient and you come to...
Exactly, I agree with that. Do you think there is, or what the biggest challenge facing Rochester resident today?
There is it's more than one, but I'll just give you the three.
The main.
The main three that I sort of see is you have affordable housing. I've talked about that. We need to make sure Rochester is a welcoming place for all. And visitors. You want to, we have the best healthcare. But how do we make sure? My vision is to make sure Rochester is the most welcoming place, and then for our business community, how do we make sure that they can actually survive and thrive, right? So those are if I had to say like the top three, but they're more than that. There's education. How do we make sure that we support education, the youth, the arts, parks? How do we make sure that people that live here actually can enjoy the amenities? So there are a lot of priorities, and then even safety. It's important.
Very important.
We need to make sure that safety, but but we also have to do it with justice, because usually people talk about safety and then you're looking at it more from a law and order perspective. We also have to make sure that we have justice.
Great. You mentioned it, housing availability and some economic circumstances for the community. And also, there's a lot of when we are speaking to challenges. But let us take to the main priority that you take on three. What solution would you have for these challenges?
So looking at like the housing issue, it's a complex issue, and I'll just sort of. Instead of just sharing, what the answers are, I'll walk you through the process a little bit. So, I did my one of my master's thesis was on actually, the housing affordability issues in Rochester.
Great.
Because I was really interested in understanding, well, how do we get there? How do we solve this? And then also in my community role, I've had the opportunity to understand best practices from other cities, and there's a coalition of organization like the National a Housing Conference. There is also realtors that are part of this, and basically they've come up with some good ideas. And essentially, you need to make sure you have you need to accelerate production of houses. So you need to build homes. So that's affordable homes. So that's one aspect. But you also need to make sure that people can afford those affordable homes. So you need to make sure you have a lending component. So the banks have a role to play. And then there's also the credit. Access to capital. So there's that aspect. So it's not just building the homes. Building the homes is important, but that's just one part of it. There's the credit, there's the banks, they have a role to play. There's also making sure that people are, not being taken advantage of in terms of consumer rights. So these are things that I sort of have on my website as a framework, but those are going to be the things that we need to put in place.
You mentioned that, some people are struggling to, when we speak for availability for credit cards, especially there is a Muslim community, especially if I take and part of them, you're part of them, and they do not like to take the interest rate. So, did you believe that we can, make some policy that makes better than, Islamic banking or Islamic?
Yeah. So, like in terms of like the credit lending, so the mayor's office does not control that. But in terms of like, and you're talking about like, just the high credit card interest rates, which is off the roof. So I teach personal finance. First of all, if you have a credit card, pay your bills, and so that way you're not getting any interest. So that's that's what I would say. But it's the reality is for some families it's very hard, and so we need to make sure that how do we ensure that there's the education in terms of just how credit lending works. We've been able to have some workshops where we teach people about credit lending, so there's an education component, that becomes important, to make sure that, before you can even maybe buy a house, we're giving you the education, we're making sure the banks, are in a position to lend that to you. So it's going to take a lot of different organizations and people to come together. So it's not just let's build the homes. That's an important part, and then from a city government, there's also things like zoning, which is basically you may have a section of Rochester where, we're going to build homes here. We may have another section of Rochester, maybe that's for, we're going to just have businesses there. And so you can use zoning to make sure that, more homes can be built. But having a framework and working with the county, working with the city council members, and bringing in community members, that's going to be important. So, but we owe it to our constituents and to the community to solve this. It's something that affects everybody.
Rochester, now we are candidates of Rochester mostly, and I think that mostly Somali people has some small business, and you mentioned that you're doing some steps for that, but if some residents feel their voice are not always heard in the city of Rochester. How do you ensure for Somali voice into the to the here to
no, for sure. So the Somali voice is a very important voice because they're just like other community members. They deserve to be heard. They live here, they pay taxes. They're Americans and they're here, so they definitely need to be heard. So what I my plan is basically how do we make sure that we have regular town halls where the voice of the people is very clear, and as a leader that you can understand what those are. So that's going to be important, and then also connecting with constituents, with our Somali community, with the elders, with the community, and so that way that's going to be important.
Yes. Many Somali families and also Latin and people or community or other foreign immigrant who live in Rochester, they have faced some challenges, especially when incident involving young Somali, and you're mostly visible in advocate for Somali community and also Latin and also some community who live here for a long time. During period of concern surrounding ICE in enforcement actions, why was that important to you, and how should city leaders support immigrant families while working with law?
Yeah, I care deeply about people.
Yep.
And
great.
When I look at and I detest injustice.
Yep.
What occurred to our Somali community was wrong.
Yep.
What occurred to our Latino community was wrong. I talked to a lot of people, and this is something that affected different folks. It affected students. You're going to pump gas, and then ICE is trying to grab you because you're wearing a hijab. You're going to the hospital, they're grabbing you. You're a doctor, they're grabbing you. So these are things that, in my role as the president of the NAACP, that folks came to us. And so it's so it was important for me to speak up because it was wrong. I wish a lot more leaders spoke up, and I wish a lot more organizations spoke up. My experience, because, I've lived under a dictatorship. My experience tells me, when you keep quiet, nothing good comes out of that.
Great.
And so we need to have moral clarity. We need to have ethical leadership that this is wrong. And that's why I did that. That's why I also stood up for the Somali child at the park. We need to have a place where it doesn't matter what your faith is. It doesn't matter if you have a disability. It doesn't matter, who you are. You should be able to go enjoy a park versus someone traumatizing you, right? And so it's really, when I look at that and I look at what occurred with ICE. Mothers basically they wanted to terrorize.
You mentioned faith. How has faith influenced your approach of leadership and also public service?
So faith is important to me. So as a Muslim, and when you're in leadership, we lead a diverse amount of people. We lead people that are from different background, different orientation, different faiths, right? And our duty is to serve all, to make sure that we care for all. And when I think about there's a verse in the Quran, Quran chapter 49 verse 3 that talks about, "O mankind, we made you from a single pair of male and female, and made you into nations and tribes so that you may know one another." So that essentially talks about just the importance of diversity, and so diversity is a strength. All of our diversity, whether you're from Somalia or a Somali American, or you're a Black and African American or a Latino person or a white person or an Amish person or an Asian person, right? So we are all part of this tribe, which is the human race. And we need to be focusing on being our brothers and sisters keeper. And so that is something that I look at in terms of, well, how do I make sure that we bring people together, leadership that brings people together, leadership that serves people. So that is, really, what sort of motivates me.
If we go other side for young generation, now we know mostly 70% young generation have been their voice and their voting, and they need some, support. And many parents are concerned with creating some opportunities. For young people especially. What role should the city and supporting the youth, and if you become a mayor?
Education is really important to me. So growing up, my father used to remind me, education is the best legacy. He's not leaving money or property, but he's leaving you knowledge, education. And you look at even from like a social justice perspective, there was a man called Frederick Douglass. He basically he was enslaved. He freed himself, and when he was trying to learn how to read, there was people that didn't want him to read. And he found out, and he said that he figured out that education is the pathway to freedom. So education is really important. We need to make sure that our children are educated, because that's going to do them well in life. Now, to answer your question, I think, the city does have a role in making sure that, our students are, to have the support. The city can collaborate with,
Yep.
The Rochester Public School. The city can collaborate with University of Minnesota Rochester.
Yeah.
They're doing a lot of great stuff there.
Yep.
So the city can help with investments in terms of like
Sure, and we know
building.
now there is a concern for some teenage. Yeah, what they are doing now is a little bit, difficult and circumstance for the community. So many parents are, trying to get some solutions for their young generation. Yep.
Yeah, so there's I think you can there's several things. One is at the structural level,
Yep.
we need to build new buildings. So like the city can help with universities and things of that nature, like they're doing with UMR. But there's also more from like a leadership development, and I co-founded.
Yep.
An organization, co-founded a program called the Rise for Youth program, and where we're teaching people about leadership development. We're teaching people about respectful relationships, eating properly.
Sure.
All of those things are really part personal finance. We talked about finance, teaching the young people about that. So all of those things really help, and these students are doing amazingly well. And so those are things, initiatives like that can definitely help.
What's your commitment for Somali community, and what would you like to Somali voters to know about your self?
And I guess I'll so to our Somali community, I care about you. This is deeply personal for me. Want to make sure that the Somali community is taken care of, that your voices are heard, just like other community members. My commitment is to be a leader that listens, to be a leader that brings people together, to be a leader that really ensures that all of your hopes and dreams, from work, from making sure that your children are safe, from making sure that you can have the great amenities that you deserve and other communities deserve. So that's my commitment, and to also make sure that I'm a leader that is accessible, but we also have to do it together. So this is not Dr. Wale just doing this. Everyone has a part to play. People need to tell us this is what is important to our community, and then as leaders, we have a duty to listen.
Yep. Great words. I think they gonna hear and they're gonna hear what you say. There are several candidates who are running for the mayor in Rochester, Minnesota. What would you say to voters who decided to the mayor?
Yeah. So I think choice is good. There are a lot of different candidates. I'll just sort of speak about what I bring to the table. I bring 20 plus years of leadership experience in different industries. I bring experience of leading over $100 million of complex projects. I bring leadership of being a director in healthcare, being the president of the NAACP,
so
being an interfaith leader, bringing Muslims, Christians, Jews, people of different faiths together to tackle discrimination and Islamophobia and anti-Semitism. So my history is long, and I bring basically a doctorate in ethical leadership. So in terms of how I lead, how I serve. So those are the things that I bring, but at its core, I bring caring, a leader that cares about the people, because without the people, we're nothing. Without the people are the ones that do the work. And so we need to do everything that we can to make sure that, our people are listened to, and that involves the children, that involves the workers, the workforce, that involves, basically, the whole community. And the way we do it is we do it together. So I want us to move Rochester forward. Like I said, our best days, I believe, are yet to come.
Exactly.
So we can do it together.
Yeah. our best days are coming. I believe that. In conclusion, what message would you like to leave the Somali Rochester and all residents?
I want them to engage with our campaign. We have a lot of priorities, and these are not Dr. Wale's priorities. These are priorities that I have listened to people, that people have shared. I want people to engage with our campaign. We need volunteers. We need people to learn and people to share their ideas. If you have an idea, go to our website. You can easily just share your ideas, and I read everything. And basically, the commitment, that I'm going to be working and serving you, but I also need them to make a commitment to also tell us, what they're looking for, to tell us in terms of what your hopes and dreams are, and for us to make it very clear, because, I think we have opportunities to make sure that the voice of the community are being very clear to city council. So basically, I just, I'm humbled to be part of the process. I care about our people, and but yeah, we just, the goal is to do this together.
Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it how you take a part and come to us and make some clear vision of Rochester political, and also the candidate of mayor of Rochester, Dr. Wale. I appreciate it and thank to him. aad iyo aad ba umahadsantihiin dhammaantiin. tan iyo intaaynu ka kulmi doono anigo maxamed carabeed kaga tagaya sidaa iyo nabadgelya barnaamijkeenina intaasi ayaan kusoo gabagabeynayna. Thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Somali Rochester Media.